The U.S. withdrawal from Afghanistan has provoked a series of issues in both the U.S. and Afghanistan. Today, we're going to talk about the Afghan refugees coming to America, and next week, we're going to discuss refugees coming to our southern border. This is an important topic because the humanitarian situation happening with the Afghan people is an urgent matter, just as the humanitarian situation happening in our southern border. If you add to the current issues and delays the immigration system is facing, it will and has worsened an already overloaded system. Hi, my name is Andres Mejer, and I'm an immigration attorney and an immigrant myself. I came to the US from Chile with my family back in the 80s. We were trying to escape the political situation our country was facing with the hope of a better future. I know how hard this journey is. When we got here, I didn't even speak English. I learned it by watching Sesame Street on TV. For a long time, we lived here without legal status. We reached out to people that were supposed to help us, but in the end, they only wasted our time and took our money. Starting a new life in a new country is already hard enough, and we experienced all the mistakes that an immigrant could make when trying to get our residency. That motivated me to become an immigration attorney and help people like you achieve your legal status with less amount of trouble possible, so you can focus on your family and your goals. The immigration system can be difficult to deal with alone. If you have any questions or concerns, I encourage you to reach out to us. Being informed and prepared is the best tool you'll have to get your legal status. Our first topic for today is the situation in Afghanistan. I want to talk about the situation of Afghan refugees and immigrants coming to the US after our presence there has officially ended. First, let's get some background to better understand the law. The US Refugee Act of 1980 standardized the procedures for admitting refugees, people who have fled war, violence, conflict, or persecution, and put in place a rigorous vetting process. This act allowed 200,000 refugees to be accepted into the country that year, in 1980. But over the past 40 years, the number of refugees accepted has fallen to the point where only 50,000 refugees were accepted in 2019. Obviously, 2020, almost none due to COVID. During the past 20 years, the US has admitted a bit more than 20,000 Afghan refugees, giving us an average of roughly 1,000 refugees per year. And to make things worse, due to the COVID pandemic, the Trump-era restrictions, and the increasing backlog in the immigration system, during fiscal year 2020 to 2000, just 11,800 refugees from around the world settled in the United States. Among them were only 495 Afghan special immigrant visa recipients. The Trump administration signed a peace deal with the intention of ending the war in Afghanistan, but did nothing about the special immigrant visas that were pending for the Afghans that helped us. The number of refugees accepted seems tiny if you consider that there are approximately 70,000 Afghans who work with US troops, 50,000 who work for organizations supported by the US government, and another 145,000 who are at risk, according to the Association of Wartime Allies. These types of visas are part of a special program created to protect Afghans who risk their lives working for US troops in Afghanistan. Each visa recipient can bring their spouse and children, and they can be eligible for a green card and US citizenship in the future. The total amount of special immigrant visas created is 34,500, meaning there are more applicants than visas. So most likely scenario is many people will be filing for humanitarian parole. The negative part of this is that humanitarian parole does not have a separate path to a green card or US citizenship. So the only option will be to go through the asylum process to become eligible for a green card. That's some background on the law and the options they have to come into the country. But since it was announced that the US would leave Afghanistan, and now of course we've left, the situation with refugees and people trying to leave the country has become very difficult. Since the Kabul airlift began, almost 124,334 people were evacuated since the government fell on August 14, 2021, including 21,600 in a 24-hour period. State Department spokesperson Ned Price told reporters that a total of 31,107 evacuees arrived in the United States between August 17th and August 31st. Of those people, 23,876 were Afghans at risk. making it up to 77% of those who entered the country. He didn't give an exact number of how many of those people had a special immigrant visa or another kind of visa, but he did mention that many of them will be civ holders. That brings us to another major point. Where will the Afghan refugees go once they arrive into the United States? At this moment, the evacuated Afghans will be housed at 8 different military installations throughout the country. These installations include Fort Lee in Virginia, Fort McCoy in Wisconsin, Fort Bliss in Texas, and Joint Base Fort Dix McGuire Lakehurst in New Jersey. Once they are processed, refugee response groups are contacted that help the refugee get situated in a city of their choice. There are about 200 refugee resettlement nonprofits around the country. Like refugees, special immigrants get government-funded special social programs for a limited amount of time, like cash and medical assistance, case management, and educational services to learn English. Refugee resettlement agencies that work with the government also help them find affordable housing, career training, and jobs. California, Utah, Texas, Virginia, and Washington are the states that have received the most special immigrants from Afghanistan since October 2020. Now, along with the challenge that their resettlement brings, there are other factors to consider with this situation. For instance, a lot of the refugees coming in have varying legal statuses. Some are eligible for special immigrant visa program that we talked about before, but there's also a priority 2 designation that was created at the beginning of August by the State Department to expand access to the refugee program to Afghans who assisted U.S. contractors, media, or government programs, but did not qualify for special immigrant visa. And then there are also individuals without visas, including those who are waiting for their civ or designation to be processed and who can request humanitarian parole. Let me go into more detail about the 2 main paths Afghan refugees take when coming to the U.S., special immigrant visa and the humanitarian parole. Special immigrant visa, like I mentioned earlier, is a program created for Afghan nationals who meet requirements and who were employed in Afghanistan. First, they need to be Afghan nationals. They must have been employed in Afghanistan for at least 1 year between October 7, 2001 and December 31st, 2023. For the U.S., so they had to have been employed during that period, and they had to have worked for the U.S. government or the International Security Assistance Force or a successor mission, and they must have been either a translator or performed activities for the U.S. military or the International Security Assistance Force. So you had to have worked within October 7, 2001 and December 31st, 2023. You have to have worked for the US government or the international group, and you had to have worked as a translator, or you had to perform activities for those organizations, for those militaries. And they had to have provided faithful and valuable service to the US government or RICF for a successor mission. Applicants must also have experienced or be experiencing an ongoing serious threat because of their employment. Finally, they must apply no later than December 31st, 2023. In July 2021, the Emergency Security Supplemental Appropriations Act authorized 8,000 additional special immigrant visas for Afghan applicants, rising the number of total to 34,500 visas allocated since December 2014. This program will end when all visas have been issued. At Andres Mejer Law, we will be volunteering to help the Afghans stationed at Joint Base Fort Dix McGuire Lakehurst, doing what we do best, evaluating their options and reviewing or preparing their applications. Humanitarian parole. So let's talk about parole. This is a temporary discretion authorizing someone to enter the United States that can be granted on humanitarian or significant public benefit reasons. Any individual can request humanitarian parole, but in this case, Afghan nationals applying should write Afghanistan humanitarian parole on the mailing envelope, as well as write an expedite request on the upper right-hand corner of the application or cover letter. This could help them get their application processed faster. Typically, parole is granted for no more than 1 year, but the Department of Homeland Security has indicated that parole can be granted for certain Afghan nationals for a period of 2 years, given the circumstances. As I mentioned earlier, people who requested humanitarian parole would not be able to apply for a green card or U.S. citizenship in and of themselves. Now, there are some downfalls for requesting parole. For instance, at the end of their parole period, they would need to leave the country if they have not successfully applied for a visa or otherwise legalized their immigration status. Under the status of parole, they do not have access to the same resettlement services as special immigrant visa applicants, ranging from cash and medical assistance to health insurance to help with housing. The only support they would get is a one-time per capita payment that State Department provides to resettlement agencies to care for people, which is about $400 per person, which is not much. And with that, we arrive at the end of this video. This is an important topic to cover because it will have a huge humanitarian impact and it can help set precedent on future immigration issues. Thank you so much for watching. If you have questions about what we just talked about, any comments or doubts, please leave them below and we'll do our best to get back to you. If you want to talk about your specific immigration situation, reach out to us. We'll be glad to talk to you and find the best path for your legal status. Remember, if we can't help you, we won't take your money. Please, if you like this video, give us a like and share it. Or if you have topics you would like me to discuss, leave us a comment so we can take it into consideration. As always, stay healthy and be well.